When I found out I was going to be a parent, I immediately felt a lot of anxiety and worry. So I went on to BetterHelp to try to look for a therapist to help me with that.
My relationship with my family and with my boyfriend and with myself were suffering. I really needed help.
I was ruminating a lot. Really getting those thoughts out to a therapist and getting feedback was just life-changing.
Discover what BetterHelp Online Therapy can do for you. Visit BetterHelp.com today.
To enjoy this episode of Forensic Tales ad-free, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Forensic Tales.
Forensic Tales discusses topics that some listeners may find disturbing. The contents of this episode may not be suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
This is a bonus update to our special episode on the so-called au pair affair murder trial. Last week, we broke down the deaths of Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan, the competing stories told in court, and the digital forensic evidence at the center of the case. At the heart of that trial was the testimony of the Banfields' former au pair, Juliana, a key witness for the Commonwealth who had already entered into a plea agreement. Yesterday, that chapter of the case moved forward. Juliana has now been sentenced. So in this short update, we're going to cover exactly what sentence she received, what the judge had to say, whether it aligned with her plea deal, and what this means for the larger case moving forward. If you haven't listened to the full breakdown of the trial yet, I recommend starting there. This episode is meant to close the loop, but for now, let's talk about what happened in court yesterday. Before we get into today's sentencing, let's take a quick second to recap the story and where Juliana fits into it. In February of 2023, police were called to the Banfield home in Northern Virginia. Inside the master bedroom, they found Christine Banfield, a pediatric intensive care nurse and mother, suffering from multiple stab wounds. She later died from her injuries. Also found inside that same bedroom was Joseph Ryan, shot to death. Christine's husband, Brendan Banfield, claimed he had returned home after receiving a call that someone was inside the house. He said he walked in to find Joseph attacking Christine and shot him in an attempt to save her. But the Commonwealth told a very different story. Prosecutors argued that Joseph wasn't a random intruder. Instead, they alleged he had been lured to the home through a fake online identity created using Christine's name and photographs. This was a calculated digital setup, one designed to make Joseph appear to be an attacker. And at the center of that theory was the Banfield's former au pair. Juliana was in her early 20s when she came to the United States from Brazil to work as the family's live-in childcare provider. She lived in the home. She helped care for the couple's 4-year-old daughter. She was part of the household. But in 2022, Juliana and Brendan got romantically involved. As the investigation unfolded, Juliana was initially charged with murder. But before Brendan's trial began, she entered into a plea agreement. She pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in Virginia. And that is what made her story so important. During Brendan Banfield's trial, Juliana wasn't a side witness. She wasn't just background noise. She was the Commonwealth's star witness. She testified that Brendan spoke about wanting to get rid of his wife. She described the affair. She outlined conversations that prosecutors said showed motive and planning. A lot of people agree that without her testimony, Brendan may have gotten away with the perfect murder. Brendan was found guilty on all charges on February 2nd, 2026. And now, it's time for Juliana to face her sentence. As if this story couldn't get any crazier, Juliana was offered a deal in exchange for her testimony against her former lover and boss. instead of facing murder charges, she would only be charged with manslaughter, and the Commonwealth would recommend she be released from jail right after she testified against Brendan. It was a sweetheart deal. If the judge approved the Commonwealth's recommendation, Juliana would only serve about 2 years for helping to murder 2 people. But would the judge agree to the recommendation? Would the judge see Juliana as the vulnerable young woman who made a terrible mistake after falling in love with her older boss? Or would she see her as a cold-blooded killer who took advantage of the system? Before any sentence was handed down, the hearing began with a small legal dispute. Juliana's defense team filed a motion to exclude victim impact statements from Christine Banfield's family. The reason was because under her plea agreement, she had only been charged with Joseph's murder, not Christine. So her attorney argued that because she wasn't convicted in Christine's death, statements related specifically to Christine shouldn't be included in her sentencing. The Commonwealth opposed the motion, saying the statements were relevant. Just because Juliana hadn't been charged with Christine's murder, that didn't mean the 2 deaths weren't inherently related. But ultimately, the judge granted the defense's request. That meant that for the purposes of Juliana's sentencing, the court would only focus on Joseph, the charge to which she had pleaded guilty. The first person to speak was Joseph's mother, who appeared via video, and it was very emotional. She talked about how close she and Joseph were, how he was supposed to be the one to take care of her as she got older. She said she still hasn't taken down her Christmas tree because Christmas was his favorite holiday. Taking it down would feel too final. She described how her physical health has declined since his death, how her mental health has suffered, how it's affected her ability to work, to function, to just move through life the way she used to. She also addressed something that's followed this case on the internet, the way Joseph has been talked about. She said there have been a lot of lies about him, a lot of assumptions, a lot of things said about his character that she says simply aren't true. And I completely agree. The way Joseph has been portrayed in this case is really, really sad. A lot of people just think of him as the guy who came to Christine's house that morning wanting to engage in some sexual fantasy. But we have to remember that he was a victim too. He was lured to that house simply to be murdered so that 2 people could be together. Throughout most of the statement, Juliana had her hands covering her mouth. I wasn't able to tell whether she was crying or not, but she appeared emotional as his mom spoke. Now, I don't know if that emotion was genuine or not, but we'll talk more about that when we get to the judge's opinion. The second and final person to make a victim impact statement was Joseph's aunt. Unlike his mom, she was there in person, and her testimony was also very emotional. She started off by saying that they appreciate how Juliana eventually came forward and told the truth about what happened. But that doesn't erase what she did. It doesn't bring Joseph or Christine back. Sitting in the gallery was also Christine's family. They weren't allowed to speak, but they were there. After that came the arguments from the Commonwealth and Juliana's attorney. The Commonwealth went first, saying they stood behind their recommendation. They say Juliana should be released and given credit for time served. They got the mastermind behind the murders, Brendan Banfield, and now it's time for her to be released. And Juliana's defense attorney agreed. He said that without her testimony, Brendan may have gotten off. He also argued that they avoided 2 criminal trials. If Juliana didn't accept the plea agreement, she would have her own trial, which would have further delayed justice. And when it came to why she didn't come forward with the truth sooner, her attorney argued that she was still under Brendan's spell. He was her boss. He was the older, married man. He promised to take care of Juliana for the rest of her life. He also convinced her that their plan was going to work. But after he was arrested, he stopped supporting her. Juliana claims that's when she had a change of heart. Something I talked about in the trial recap episode was the Commonwealth's forensic evidence in this case. In my opinion, the forensic evidence was weak. Yes, there was a lot of digital evidence, but could the Commonwealth prove it was actually Juliana or Brendan behind the keyboard? And when it came to the physical evidence, some of that pointed away from Brendan or Juliana. If you recall, Brendan's DNA wasn't found on the knife that was used to stab Christine to death. So without Juliana's testimony, would prosecutors have been successful in convicting Brendan Banfield? Also, would Brendan have testified in his own defense if Juliana hadn't turned on him? That was another argument Juliana's attorney made in front of the judge. Another highlight from the hearing came from Juliana herself. She read a statement right before the judge handed down the sentence. To be honest, I don't know how to feel about it. She asked for forgiveness, saying she would have to live with this for the rest of her life. She seemed emotional and genuine. But was it actually real? Were her tears genuine? And more importantly, would the judge believe her? The answer to the question, no, the judge didn't believe her. In her ruling, the judge completely slammed Juliana and said she showed absolutely no empathy for what she had done. She also thought Juliana was far more involved in the murder plot than she testified to. She wasn't just some innocent younger girl. Just like Brendan, she methodically planned to murder 2 innocent people. The judge laid out all the reasons supporting her decision. Number 1, she lied to Christine about taking Valerie to the zoo that morning. This lie directly set up the murder plans. 2, she used Christine and Brendan's daughter, who was just 4 years old, as a pawn. 3, she was the one who called Brendan to the scene that morning. 4, she had multiple opportunities to stop this, but she didn't. 5, when she heard Christine suffering, she called the police but hung up and called back 15 minutes later. 6, after she saw that Joseph had been shot in the head, she still went up to him and shot him a second time in the chest. 7, she watched as Brendan stabbed Christine to death and did nothing. 8, she waited 15 minutes to call for help. 9, she lied to police and prosecutors for over a year while in custody. Even after she was arrested, she continued to lie in order to protect herself. She didn't flip until after Brendan was arrested, almost a year later. And number 10, right after Christine was murdered in cold blood, she encouraged 4-year-old Valerie to call her Mom. I think that sums up how the judge felt about the au pair. In the end, the judge didn't go along with the Commonwealth's recommendation of credit for time served. Instead, she handed down the maximum sentence she possibly could, 10 years. Juliana would have to serve 10 years in prison for her role in the murder of Joseph Ryan. She would also serve an additional 2-year suspended sentence, during which she will be on probation. She would not be released for credit for time served. The judge handed down the absolute maximum sentence she could. Is there justice? I don't know. For Christine and Brendan's families, this sentence won't bring them back. Nothing will bring them back. Is there closure? I don't know either. Is there ever closure after something as terrible as this happens? 2 innocent people were killed because Juliana and Brendan wanted to be together. The au pair and the older married man. Now that the sentence has been handed down, do you think Juliana regrets her decision to testify against Brendan? Or is 10 years still a sweetheart deal? If she had been charged with first-degree murder, she would likely spend the rest of her life behind bars. Under this agreement, she will be a free woman by the time she reaches her 30s. If you haven't listened to the full breakdown of the au pair affair trial, you can find that special episode in the Forensic Tales feed. As always, I'll continue to follow any major developments moving forward. If you enjoyed these special trial episodes, please let me know on social media and I will do more of them. Thank you for listening, and until next time, remember, not all stories have happy endings.
Forensic Tales is a Rockefeller audio production. The show is written and produced by me, Courtney Fretwell. If you'd like to help create compelling new cases, fund research, and assist with production and editing costs, you can support the show with a small monthly contribution. In return, you'll be one of the first to listen to new ad-free episodes and gain access to exclusive content. To learn more, visit patreon.com/Forensic Tales. Forensic Tales is a podcast made possible by our Patreon producers. If you'd like to become a producer of the show, head over to our Patreon page or send me an email at courtney@forensictales.com. Thank you for listening and see you next week. Until then, remember, not all stories have happy endings.
Keep your wellness routine going strong all summer. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition wherever you are. With 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and more. Simplify your daily ritual. Go to Kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.